Hello guys, I'm John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and today I am reviewing A Birds of Prey, which is why I'm doing this very poor attempt at having a Roman Sionis outfit. These gloves are way too big because they're my dad's, which is why I'm going to take them off. I literally just put them on for a thumbnail photo. Also, I put on eyeliner, which I never do, but someone thought it was a good idea to put Ewan McGregor in eyeliner, which, yes, was a goddamn good idea. Congratulations, he looked freaking gorgeous. But we're not here to talk about Ewan McGregor, at least not yet. We're here to talk about Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn, basically the Harley Quinn movie. So here we go. Also, I don't know how many spoilers I'm gonna give. I'm probably not gonna jump into like major spoilers, but I'm giving out spoiler warning just in case, because I know I like to talk and then I give away details that might be considered spoilers. So here is your spoiler warning in case you want to go into this film completely spoiler free. Okay, first off, I was quite excited to watch this movie. I know this film has been in production for quite some time. I like Harley Quinn. She's a cool character. I'm one of the few people who actually enjoyed Suicide Squad. Sure, it wasn't like the best film ever, but you know, it was enjoyable. I had a lot of fun. And obviously Harley Quinn was one of the best parts of Suicide Squad, and I love Margot Robbie. She's a great actress. Especially this character is portrayed so brilliantly by her. So I think it's a good idea that she got her own movie. But obviously it's called Birds of Prey. But we all know that it's mostly about her. We're gonna talk about, you know, the name and all the other characters in a second. But let's stick with a Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie. Let's stick with her first. She is an absolute blast. Harley Quinn is the best thing about this film, definitely. Margot Robbie portrays her absolutely brilliantly. Especially like all the physical stuff she has to do, the action, the fight scenes. I will talk about the fight scenes some more later, but you know, those scenes when Harley has to fight, and those fighting scenes in general are absolutely fantastic to watch. And Harley is just a blast to watch while she's on screen. She's funny. She also can be serious when the movie demands it. And it's just wonderful going along with her on this adventure. And I like how she always stays as a, you could say, anti-hero, because she's definitely not a hero. At the end of this film, she's still a bad person. She is a villain. She is the Joker's ex-girlfriend, and she does some horrible things in this, but it's sort of similar to Deadpool. This film has a big Deadpool vibe, but in a good way, where Harley, you know, is like this quirky, anti-heroic main character who does a lot of brutal and amoral stuff, but you know, it's sort of portrayed in a funny, entertaining sort of way where you can laugh at what's going on, and you can still understand what she's going through. And so I like just going with her on this adventure. I like what they did with her character. They're not dwelling too long on the whole breakup, which I think is good. That's just like the first 10-15 minutes of the film. But then the plot kicks off and she is her own woman and does her own thing. And I like how she conducts herself in this film. And yeah, she was definitely the best character, the most fun to watch in this film. So I already mentioned that there is a sort of Deadpool vibe about the character, but about the whole film in general. But I mean this in the most positive way, honestly. I especially love the opening, which isn't really a spoiler, but they're doing something a bit special with the opening. It's a bit removed from the rest of the film, but I like how they are recapping Harley's story thus far and her life and what she's going through. Also, as a side note, I appreciate that the opening explicitly showed that Harley is bisexual. So that was fantastic to see. I was very much happy about that. And also, like, in when I say this Deadpool vibe is also like with the narrative, they're playing a lot with Harley telling us this story. So we constantly hear Harley throughout the film referring to certain events or to certain characters. And because of that, we don't really have like a chronological storyline. At least not in the first half of the film. Like towards the second half of the film, everything becomes a bit more straight line and you know what's going on. But especially like in the first half of the film, the story jumps around a lot, and Harley is like, "Oh, you can't even know about this party because I haven't told you about this character yet." So there is a lot of jumping around, which I honestly thought was fine. I actually appreciate it when films try to do something a bit different when they're doing something that is not in chronological order, and I think it goes very well with her as a character, that she's sort of a bit confusing at times. Like since she's very hyper, that she would start telling the story, and then she's like, "Oh, hang on, you can't know about that yet. Let's jump back. I'll tell you about that other cool thing that happened with me that morning." I really like that. I could understand why some people might find this a bit annoying, also especially the narrative, or even a bit confusing, this whole jumping around stuff. But honestly, I could follow everything that was going on. I also I watched this along with my brother and his girlfriend. They also always knew what was going on. They could follow the story perfectly. And again, I don't really want to compare it to Deadpool, but you know, I mean this in the best way possible. If you like this sort of wacky tone and this style of cinema that's a bit different and not chronological and a bit all over the place, but without being too confusing, then you're gonna like this. This is great because this uses the fact that it is a comic. It is a comic-based film, and it has a lot of fun with that because it is wacky. It is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous at times. It is brutal, it is all over the place, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but you know, it works, and you can see this in the character of Harley Quinn very, very well, I think, in her narrative and how she is being presented, because she is this perfect mixture of being absolutely crazy, but still being fun and even being endearing, like, because you wouldn't be able to do this film if she weren't a charming character. She very much is, and which is also due to Margot Robbie playing her so brilliantly. So you want to go with Harley, you want to follow her on this weird story she's trying to tell us. So I appreciate what the movie is not only doing with her as a character, but also how the film is using her as a narrative device and using her narrative and trying to do something a bit different. I like that a lot. Talking about some of the other characters we meet in this film, the Birds of Prey. So we have Huntress, we have Renee Montoya, we have Cassandra Cain or something, the girl's name. I'm sorry, I don't quite remember. And Black Canary. And I have to say right away, I'm not really familiar with the Birds of Prey, the comics or anything. I do read DC comics now and then, but the Birds of Prey are something I haven't really gotten into, which I will do now since I watched this movie and was quite fond of it. But I liked seeing those other characters as well. Again, just to mention it, I like that they're being very open about the LGBTQ plus representation. I knew that Renee Montoya is meant to be gay, so I appreciate that they're doing that. They're bringing her ex-girlfriend in, and it's presented as something very natural. Like, it's not too much in your face. This is what this thing is about. No, it feels very natural, and I like Renee Montoya in general because she's played up as being this sort of classic cliche 80s cop. And while you could argue that the film is not really going away from that, they're sort of pointing at it and making fun of it, but then they're also sort of sticking to her being this 80s cop. And I honestly don't mind because I think it works rather well within the confines of the story, and it also works rather well with all the other characters that we meet throughout this film, because she is sort of this badass, she's the most serious of characters probably in this film, very down to earth, and you know, street smarts combined with book smarts, that sort of thing. So I liked her and the actress that portrayed her, and I think you could very well see this character be coming into her own when she was interacting with the other Birds of Prey towards the end of the film. Speaking of which, let's talk about Black Canary. I liked her a lot as well. The actress was absolutely fantastic. I loved every moment when she was on screen. I always wanted to know what was going on with her. The only thing I basically knew about this character is what her powers are and what she looked like. That was all I knew before going into this film. So I can only say what I saw in this film and say that she's a very interesting character. She's tough, but she has a moment when she's afraid. She can kick your ass, but she can also be sentimental when she needs to be. And similar to Harley Quinn, she is a bit more of an anti-hero, leaning a bit more towards the hero side. Because, she tries to do what is right, she tries to do what she thinks is right, what's the moral thing to do. But, at the same time, she also just kicks someone's ass if she doesn't like them, or works for Roman Sionis. So there's that going on. And I liked her because she's also more on this street smart sort of side, but I like how she's also a bit sassy, but without being too like over the top or being too ridiculous. I like how she's sort of in this in-between zone, like between the criminals. She sort of needs this job, needs to work for Black Mask, but she doesn't really. On the side, she doesn't really want to, and she wants to help this kid. She wants to know what's going on. She just wants to do the right thing. So I like seeing her a lot as well, and I don't mind that we didn't really see that much of her power. I like that they are building up to it. You're being introduced to her with her singing a cool song, which was wonderfully sung, by the way, and you sort of kind of guess what this whole thing is building up to, and I like that then this is the one moment she gets towards the end when it's the worst case scenario and she has to use her power. And since that has also been kind of teased before with her mother also having that power and her mother knowing Renee Montoya, so we sort of kind of know that there's something going on. So I like what they did with her. I enjoyed the character a lot too. And now we move on to a Huntress, who I thought, even though she got the least screen time or the least establishing plot in the story, she was nevertheless a very funny character. I did not expect her to be like that, because she's sort of she's really badass. She's super badass, but that's the only thing she's pretty much good at. She's good at being badass, but she is like super socially awkward and shy and doesn't really know how to talk to people. And I related to that so much. I was like, yeah, you're good at this one thing and you always have in your head how it's supposed to sound, how cool it's gonna be, but then you have so much trouble doing it, especially when other people are around you. I thought it was such a cool thing to do, very relatable, I think, to not just me, to probably a lot of people. Especially this sort of running gag they're having with her, where she's trying to like say her cool badass name, but she's Huntress, and everyone's always like crossbow killer. She's like, no, I'm not the freaking crossbow killer. That was super fun, and yeah, obviously she's super badass. I love her fighting style with the crossbow. That was really cool. Like, yeah, the only complaint I have about her is basically the one that everyone has about her, that her storyline is the least coherent one, at least the way it's worked into the story. She doesn't get as much screen time as the other girls do. And she sort of just comes in towards the second half of the film and it's like, oh yeah, now I'm part of this group. Yeah, so I personally, sure, I would have liked a bit more establishing of her character, maybe work her into the story a bit more, have her interact with some of the other girls a bit early in the film, perhaps. But, that wasn't a problem, at least not a major problem for me though, because in the end when she came in and she was with the other girls and she fought and she had one or two little character moments, I still very much connected with her, and I like watching her. And our other main character is the girl, Cassandra Cain. I've already heard that some people complained a bit about her character because she's apparently quite different to what she is like in the comics, but since I have not read the comics, I didn't know anything about her, which is why I'm judging her as I saw her character in the film. And I thought the girl, the actress, did a very good job with her. I like that girl. I like how she isn't like a typical girly girl, but she's also not like a boy girl, like not like a tomboy or anything. She's just like a normal kid who lives on the streets, who does her thing. She pickpockets people, and she also has one or two little badass moments, which I thought was cool. She doesn't really like people telling her what to do, and she can stand on her own, can tell people what she wants, what she doesn't want, and so sure she pretty much serves a bit as a plot device, since she has something everyone wants. But I like what they did with her character. I like, especially when she gets to be with Harley. Those scenes are very cute in the film. They're very sweet. They're also very funny, and I like that through her you're able to see how much Harley also has changed to a certain degree, but also how she hasn't changed. So I like that you can sort of see both of these sides through Harley's interactions with Cassandra Cain. And yeah, Cassandra Cain in general, I think, is a fun character. If we ever get like a sequel to this story, I could very well imagine bringing her back and maybe getting her a bit closer to what she's like in the comics. Who knows? I still need to find out what she's actually like in the comics, so I need to read those. But as far as I can tell, the actress did a good job. I liked her because I usually don't like kid characters in films. I usually find them very annoying, even if they're well acted. But yeah, I thought she did a great job, and I like watching her. Okay, and the last two characters I want to talk about are sort of my secret favorites of this film, namely Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask, and Victor Zsasz. It was so much fun seeing these two, honestly. DC does villains so well, I think, and I mean, Black Mask and Victor Zsasz aren't like the most refined, aren't like the most well known or highly regarded villains in the DC canon, but they work perfectly well for this sort of film. The two actors are brilliant, especially Ewan McGregor. I was like, oh yes, I love him because you can see how much fun he's having with just being the scumbag, asshole, wanker villain, and you were like, I'm like, I absolutely hate you, but I love you at the same time. How are you doing this? And yeah, I think those two were wonderful to watch. You absolutely despise them because I think they make a pretty good job of showing you that, sure, these two might be having their fun, and they're sort of fun to watch because the actors are having fun, but they're giving you those moments where you think, holy wow. Like, you get this very early on when they're kidnapping their family and torturing them, you get that, and then there was this other scene towards the middle of the film, I think, when Roman is completely freaking out and he is sort of focusing his rage on that one woman in his club and what he does to her. Man, that didn't feel good watching that. And I like how they only showed enough so that you knew what was going on. They concentrated on the faces and what was going on. They focused on what a horrible, absolutely horrible person Roman and also Zsasz and that moment were being. And that's all you needed. That's all you needed to know, that this was not a good thing that was going on right now. And that was all you needed to know to see that, yes, Roman Sionis really is that bastard. And yeah, they work very well for this film. They are fun to watch because the actors are having so much fun. You could sort of argue, because my brother was saying that when we went out of the cinema, that he was like, well, he's sort of like your standard classic villain. He didn't really do much for me, especially like referring to Roman Sionis. But I was like, Roman Sionis is sort of just this mob gangster sort of guy who does his thing and tortures people and all that and has a mask. Like that, that's sort of this thing. He doesn't really do that much more, but we don't really need much more. That's all we need for this film. This film isn't about the villains. We just sort of need an antagonist for a Harley Quinn and all the other girls. And for that, Roman Sionis and Victor Zsasz work perfectly. And I like what they did with these characters. I had fun watching them. I love the dynamic, the chemistry between these two. I mean, if that ain't gay, I don't know what is. So that was fun. You could see that these two actors were just having fun playing the villains, honestly. And I'm a bit sad at the end both of them are there, because I thought they could have, Ewan McGregor was so great in this one. I was like, I would have liked to keep him around a bit longer, but the way he went out, damn what they do with him. I laughed so hard at the climax of this film. I did not expect that solution to that problem. Okay, so overall, Birds of Prey for me was a wonderful film. It was highly entertaining. I had so much fun watching it. I like that they're doing something different with this. So I'm sort of seeing DC now as trying to do something a little bit different with every film, which I think is a great idea. Because one of my big criticism against Marvel is that a lot of films in the Marvel universe just feel the same, apply the same formula, do the same kind of humor, just do the same sort of style. And what I hope DC is really like going into doing now is just doing different things if they have different kinds of characters. Because the Joker film was like this sort of dark and noir 70s 80s sort of film, like feeling like Taxi Driver and King of Comedy and all that. It was very dark, very different. And then you have something like Wonder Woman, or also Shazam, that was a bit more like a classic superhero style, what we're used to seeing. And now we have Birds of Prey, that's sort of more like this wacky, ridiculous sort of comic book style movie. I absolutely love that. I like what they're doing. I like that they're doing this differently, that they're using the craziness of Harley, not only for showing what a cool and fun character she can be, but that they're also using that for the narrative of the film. It feels very fresh, I thought. Sure, this isn't like the most unique thing I've ever seen, and I already said that this is sort of comparable to Deadpool, but I mean this in the best of ways. This was so much fun to watch. I love all of the characters. They were so entertaining to watch, obviously especially Harley Quinn. And sure, you could argue, why is this called Birds of Prey? I don't mind, because at the end it very obviously sets up Birds of Prey. This is what this movie was building towards. At the end, you have the Birds of Prey. I mean, how often do you have films that get completely ridiculous names where you're wondering why the hell did they give this film this title? This wouldn't be the first time, and I don't mind, because at the end they're clearly setting this up, and we're probably going to get a sequel. Wouldn't mind seeing one with the Birds of Prey, like one that doesn't have Harley Quinn in it at all, just like those three women that we see at the end of the film. I would definitely watch a film with them. I would also not mind another Harley Quinn solo film. I would definitely not mind that. I think they have a good set of characters here, and I hope DC is gonna do a great more fun things with them. So this is my review of the Birds of Prey film. What are your thoughts on it? Put something down in the comments below. Did you enjoy as much as me? Were there some things that you thought were a bit confusing where I said I liked them? Just tell me down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. I hope you enjoyed this little review, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.